Have you ever heard a harmless idea about abuse that just didn't sit right with you and maybe even made you feel a little ashamed? Have you ever stopped to ask who really benefits when we're told that only physical abuse counts? Today, we're asking those questions and introducing the theme for this week, deconstructing the myths that fuel shame and keep survivors trapped. I'm going to take you through the anatomy of a myth about abuse, okay? Myths about abuse, they're harmless ideas or beliefs, and they explain why abuse happens, why it can't be stopped, and whose fault it is. Now, for survivors, I want you to consider how myths, fuel shame in the sense of how they create isolation or a sense of like a feeling of smallness and even possibly like a reduced sense of options that you had at some point in your journey. And all of those things, isolation, smallness, and reduced options, they most definitely impact your sense of safety. It's not only a sense of safety, but actual physical safety. And for the world, I want you to consider um, when thinking about all of these myths, who benefits, who get off the hook, who is this actually serving? And most importantly, are you okay with that? Is that what you choose for this world? Okay, so let's break it down with a specific example. Now, one, and here's the myth we're gonna go with only physical abuse counts and only physical abuse makes it real abuse. That is a pervasive myth about abuse. It's only counts if it's physical, okay? Now, the problem with this myth is that it invalidates all forms of abuse that lead to physical abuse, okay? This is really important because, for example, um, you know, no one, rarely are people like within the context of abusive relationships, are they physically assaulted on the first date, right? Like that's not what it looked like for me at all. And this is really important because, in addition to invalidating all the abuse that often leads to physical abuse, it sort of reinforces like the crazy narrative of like if someone is experiencing a problem in their relationship and they can't quite understand why, um, it's crazy making you feel crazy. I remember feeling like I was going crazy. And there are, like, if you feel like you're going crazy and you can't make sense of it, and only physical abuse counts, then you are making it up, right? Because it couldn't possibly be any other explanation. Which leads to my next point, which is this myth makes the conditions that allow physical abuse to happen remain invisible, right? If we're saying that abuse exists, we're putting on the table any tools or opportunity to recognize the science, right? The science, other forms of abuse, work together. And not only that, and I think this is one of the most important impact of this myth is that if the only visible abuse is real abuse, what it is, it moves content when private are keeping keep them alive, right? It removes the context, makes that content invisible. With me, I journey about that, it was invisible. So there's things happening where there was with that invisible context, just would intensify shame and which made isolation worse. It basically, without context, made my fault worse. and not leaving, right? The which creates this idea like that you make decision or can't be trusted, right? That's for me. I back on look at myself, why didn't I leave? And the answer I gave came up with is like I just made these wrong decisions and that I can't be trusted. I can't trust myself. And that just made me feel very ashamed and very isolated. And it's very difficult to rebuild a life. It's very difficult to create a sense of safety if you can't even trust yourself, right? And so look at all of this. Who benefited from me believing that or not being able to recognize other forms of abuse? Who got off the hook, right? Like the person who is choosing violence, the person who is causing harm, and who is this serving? Within the context of that relationship, that myth totally served my ex, right? Like this, where when we look at these things, who with this myth of only physical abuse counts, only physical abuse makes it real. Who are we not talking about? We're not talking about like the abusers, the people causing harm. We're not talking about community. We're not talking about the people within the community of the relationship, within the community for the abuser that can hold them accountable. And we're also not talking about the law too. Like the justice system like doesn't even attempt like it's not if it's not like physical abuse, I don't even think it's illegal. Like it varies from state to state. And even if it is on the books, it's very hard to prove and very hard to get protection for. And so who gets the blame from society, right? And the self, right? In the context of this, myth. And so yeah, that's it's such a great example like of the myth of how this myth really fuels shame, right? It removes all the context, and without all the context, who is left to blame? Who is left to take responsibility? The survivor. And that's what this week is all about, y'all. Asking the hard questions and taking apart these harmful narratives. Tomorrow, we'll start with one of the most common and damaging phrases survivors hear. Make sure you're subscribed so we can bust these myths together. All right.